Sydney. Today, we are going to cut up this bird. Are you chicken?
I'm just going to wing it. Welcome back to At the Table. Sydney here, and I'm joined by my sweet friend Kelly Tyndall, who is the FCS agent in Lenoir County. How long have you been the FCS agent there?
5 years.
5 years. So she's been there a good little bit, and your family owns a farm.
Yes.
And you have some experience with all things farming, right?
Yes. A little too much at some points.
So she is somebody that I feel like she does a wonderful job kind of explaining how to really chop the chicken into smaller parts, debone a chicken. And when we're thinking about why we even chose to do this episode, chicken's been expensive right now, right?
Yes, very.
If you're trying to buy breast or even a chicken tenders, the tenderloins are extremely expensive right now.
And you know why that is?
Why?
So when you may have going to say this, so the more the butcher has to chop down the chicken, the more cost it's going to be. So there's other things also included with the rise of any grocery products at this time. But another thing, the different parts that you get, the more the butcher has to chop, that makes it more expensive too.
So if there's things that you can do yourself, that is a great way to cut cost, right? Mm-hmm. This bird, it wasn't the smallest one they had. It wasn't the biggest one they had. It was a kind of a medium-sized. I can't remember the exact pounds. I think it was like 2.5 pounds or so. It was $5 for the whole bird. And I mean, you can get multiple meals out of this, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to have a little series where today we are going to be making a dish once Kelly cuts this up, but I'll have a couple other dishes that you could make with your chopped chicken after Kelly gets it all cut. So I want you to kind of just dive right in, show us how to cut this up properly, and then you're going to show a little bit of deboning as well, right?
Yes, we're going to debone the breast.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to let Kelly get to it. You just tell me what you need.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a whole chicken like this can be very overwhelming. So what I like to do is start with the smaller parts and start taking that away. So I have different knives here. You don't have to use all of these knives. Sometimes it just depends on, maybe if one's a little dull, and so you definitely want your knives, really sharp. Also, another thing is some great kitchen shears. Work really good in cutting through some of those bones sometimes. When you don't want to rinse your chicken. I'm glad we thought about that. I know, don't panic. There's some things on the chicken and the juice that it comes in the bag, but that's okay. So a good thing to do is put your chicken in a bowl, cut it open, let the juices get in your bowl, and then just take a paper towel and wipe your chicken off if any of that stuff that's on there that you don't like to see, and that's perfectly fine. When you cook your chicken at the right temperature, then that kills all the bacteria and things like that could be on the chicken. So don't worry, you want to get it at that right temperature, which is 165. Yeah. Okay. So another thing is making sure your cutting board that you're cutting your chicken on will not move around. That will be, if you're cutting down and that board moves. So one thing that you can do, if you don't have a board that has little grippers on it, you can wet a paper towel and put your board down and make sure it doesn't move. All right, and I always keep some paper towels handy, just to wipe up some juices and sometimes wipe up my knife. So we're going to start with the wing. This is, what you can do is just pull your wing back, take your thumb and just feel around to where the joint is. Sometimes you have to really kind of push in there, but don't worry, go ahead and get started. And if you feel any kind of resistance, just stop and move your knife over just a little bit. So we have our wing. There's our first part. And then we come over here to the second part. And never be, another thing, the more you do this, the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. I've done this for a while, but sometimes when I've cut up several chickens, I just need to move over just a little bit. I have all of that in my freezer, and so I don't need to cut up chicken for a while. And then I have to practice some more because, you know, it's like riding, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You go right back into it, but sometimes you do need a little refresher. Let's see, where did my little knot here go?
And I wanted to mention, Kelly is using the Filet Knife. So as she mentioned, there's several different knives. The Filet Knife, which is the one she has right now, is going to be a little bit skinnier and longer. So it's better for kind of working into those different parts of the chicken, which is what she's going to have to be doing as she goes through.
Yes, I actually even like the chef's knife as well, but it just kind of depends. I don't think one is just specific. So the next thing we're going to do is the leg and the thigh. And this is the dark meat of the chicken. And so what you want to do is just pull your skin apart and kind of just cut through there until you see the skin is separated apart. And then you're going to push up and pop that bone out a little bit. And once you pop that bone out, then you will just come right on the other side and just cut right down your thigh from your back. There we go. So now we have our thigh and our leg. And we're just going to put that right here for now, and we will come back to it. And now we're going to come on this other side. And again, just make little cuts in the meat until you can get in there. Sometimes the skin wants to pull, and sometimes you don't want the skin on there. The skin has flavor and makes our chicken flavorful, but it's also the fat part. And sometimes especially when we're watching our cholesterol and things like that, we want to take the fat away. Okay, so we've popped it open again, and I'm just going to come right down here. And if you feel like you're having some issues with your knife, you can always take your kitchen shears and cut. And make sure, of course, they're sharp. And these are specific for your kitchen. Oh, I went just a little over. There we go. Using just regular Christmas paper scissors to, cut is not going to work. So these need to be specific for that. Okay, we now have our leg and our thighs, and we are going to go ahead and cut those up too.
Let's take a quick break. So we've got our legs, our thighs, and our wings done. So we'll come back. We'll let Kelly finish chopping up those legs and thighs, and then we'll do the breast as well.
Yes.
And we'll see you guys back in just a second.
Star Communications strives to provide you with the best video services. That's why we invested in cutting-edge video equipment to bring you new features such as Cloud DVR, Restart TV, Local Video on Demand, advanced parental controls, and higher quality reception. Unfortunately, these improvements require some changes, and existing DVR customers will lose their current recordings. Changes will start the middle of January, so please view all your recorded content. We hope you will love the new Star TV.
Welcome back, guys. So now we've got our thigh and our leg. We want to separate that too, because those are different pieces you can use for a different dish, or you can use them together. It doesn't matter. A lot of people do keep these together, and they may grill them or put them in the oven. But we are going to cut them apart today. And if you'll just pull back the skin a little bit, you'll see this fat line. And this is a good indicator of where you can cut your leg apart from your thigh. Now, just remember, if you start cutting it, oh, and one other thing I forgot about, make sure you curl your fingers. Now, that is something that you have to get used to doing, but it will certainly keep your fingers intact when you're cutting up, especially on something kind of wet like this chicken. So we are going to start cutting on the chicken, and I'm going to move it over just a little bit. There we go. So again, if you are cutting down and you're like, oh no, I'm not getting this right, just pick up your knife and move it over to the side and you'll go right through it. There we go, there's our leg. And we have our thigh, nice piece of, nice size there. Okay, now we're gonna come back to our other leg and thigh, and we found that, that fat line, and we're just gonna go through there. And so I'm not pulling the skin, I'm gonna cut through that. There we go. And now we have our thigh.
And you'll notice that Kelly's using the chef's knife now, just because that is a little bit bigger. It'll help her to get through. So when you're in, you might switch to maybe the fillet for the breast, but for those areas where you have a lot of bone that you might just really need to cut through it, the chef's knife is just easier. It has a little bit more power. So that's why she switched to that.
Yes, and for my my wing, I cut off this little piece right here. It doesn't really have any meat on there, but you can hold on to it and put it with your back if you'd like to put it in your chicken stock for later. So not only do we have this meat for dishes to cook, we can also make soups and stews with the stock from the back. Okay, now I'm going to remove the back of the chicken the same way I did remove the leg from the thigh by looking at that fat line. I really like to use my scissors for this part. So we're just going to cut through. I think I need to turn. Is it okay? There we go. And I'm going to flip it over.
Brought this for your chicken stock that you might need.
Okay.
So you can put that for
and
your
we're
back.
cutting right through that, and we'll put our back in there and use that for our chicken stock. Now we're just going to turn our breast over. My hands are getting a little bit wet and slimy, so I'm going to cut off some paper towel so I won't be sliding all around, and we are going to debone this chicken. I always think of, I know we just got through with Heart Healthy Month, but when you turn the breast over, it tends to have a heart shape to the breast. So I figured, you know, that's another indicator of eating chicken for heart health. Okay, now I'm going to take the knife and I'm just going to go right down the middle and make a little cut. And this part, some people leave the bone on the chicken, and that's fine. That gives flavor to the meat. And then some people, especially for the dish that we're going to use today, so we don't want any bone attached. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to feel right here is the bone, and I'm just going to start cutting down from my chicken to remove it away from the bone. And you just keep pulling back the chicken, and if you feel like you're in an area that's not giving, then just move your knife over. Okay, there we go.
And when we're thinking about, we kind of mentioned the skin, so you could absolutely leave the skin on to cook. This just depends on what you're going to be using these recipes for, or these pieces of meat for, and what recipe you're using them in. So as Kelly mentioned, we might not want the bone. We might, same thing, not want the skin on it. The skin does add some fat, and when we're thinking about that saturated fat content, we want to kind of keep that reduced a little bit. But you could keep the skin on to cook it and then remove the skin prior to eating it. There's other ways around it, right?
Yes, exactly. Folks, if you could have only seen my breast when I first started cutting up chicken, it looked more like a little piece of the back, but this is a nice piece of breast. It has been deboned, and so now it's in long strips, and we're going to be doing fajitas, and we kind of like that, but I also like, because it is so long, I like to cut it in two and then do strips like that as well. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to debone my other breast.
And while she's doing that, we will let Kelly finish deboning, and then we will move into the next part of our cooking, making our recipe. We're going to be making a 1-pan dish of chicken fajitas. So we'll see you guys back in just 1 second.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
All right, welcome back, guys. So Kelly cut our chicken up beautifully. So we have all of the parts cut, and you even separated the leg from the thigh, right? And is there anything additional that we need to talk?
We have the wings, and honestly, the wings do have a little bit more meat on there than what it's not my favorite part of the chicken, but don't throw it away because there is some good meat on there. A lot of people love wings, can put them on the grill, can put them in the stock as well. You can also, if you are doing like chicken and rice or chicken and pastry, you can use the meat from that. And actually, I love doing stuff like that, especially if it's, well, we're now getting, cooler temp, well, it just,
Yeah.
could be anything. We're in Eastern North Carolina, maybe hot, maybe cold. But we use those things, for warmth. But then you could also use, if you do like a chicken and rice or a chicken and pastry, you can also use that same chicken for chicken salad.
Yeah.
So if it's a hot day, you can have your chicken and salad, and a cold day, you can have your chicken and rice.
So very versatile. You can make lots of different things with it, which is key. And really, if you baked the whole chicken or you throw it in the crock pot or however, and then maybe you have more like shredded chicken, then you have even more, I kind of feel like you get even more options that way because it's already shredded, and you can easily remove the bones once it's, especially if it's crock pot cooked or pressure cooked, it just becomes so much more tender that those fall right out. So we have all that. The breast, we already have chopped up and thrown that in our marinade, which I'll talk about in a second. The last thing I wanted to speak about is this, the remaining parts of our chicken. So I went ahead and put that in a freezer bag. Tip for you, I always roll the bag down a little bit so you don't get any of the juice at the top. And then always make sure you're labeling. So really we want to use this, I would say there's no preservatives or anything added to this. So 3 to 6 months possibly. And you can just cook this down and make your own chicken stock with it. So I just labeled it chicken stock parts because we have a community freezer over here and there's no telling who's going to go in there and see this. So anyway, make sure you're labeling and all of that, and don't throw that stuff away because you see how much meat we're getting here. You can absolutely utilize that.
Yes, absolutely.
So we will transition. I'm going to scoot on over here, and we're going to transition to our fajitas. So what we have next, Kelly went ahead and she chopped up our chicken breast into those little strips, and then I made our marinade. So our marinade has a couple different spices. It has chili powder, it has ground cumin, garlic powder, salt, and then we have 2 tablespoons of honey to give it a little sweetness, and then the juice of 2 limes, and then you also add in 2 tablespoons of your olive oil. So we've just kind of let it sit in there. It doesn't really have to marinate for very long, but this would be something you could make ahead of time to have it marinating in your fridge overnight or for the day to give it even more flavor. So we've already got that. We're gonna set that aside and work on our vegetables next. So for fajitas, we've got a green bell pepper and a red bell pepper and 2 jalapenos. So I'm gonna give Kelly one of each of these. And she's gonna chop those up, and I'll kind of start over here. Now, the best thing about this recipe is that it is a great way for you to get those vegetables in as well, and you're utilizing that chicken. So sometimes it's hard for us to think about how we can stretch our meat and how we can make it last a little bit longer, mix it with veggies. Veggies are good for us. We want vegetables. Vegetables have a lot of flavor in them as well. So make sure that you are utilizing vegetables in your dish. And while everything seems to have increased, as we're getting into those warmer months, this is a great time to start planting your own garden. So you can absolutely grow your own food, and these are ways that you can incorporate that food into what you're eating. Now we're cutting this into strips, right, Kelly?
Yes.
Making sure we were on the same page. And we're just gonna bake all of this. So as I said, this is a 1-pan dish to where all of this is gonna be cooked together. And as fajitas, we typically have those nice little strips. And you want it to be semi-uniform just so that it will cook pretty evenly.
Another thing you can also do is add in pasta, a whole grain pasta. I was not totally right away quick to change over to that with some of my breads. So I did do it with my pasta really easily. So you can add pasta noodles in there with your vegetables. You can do chicken with pesto sauce, and that's another dish that's easy to do, easy to make up, and can feed a lot of folks.
Yes. So if you're trying to find ways to stretch your food even further, mixing any grain really, so rice, pasta with those veggies. Honestly, this recipe I think would be great over rice if you don't want to go the fajita route. So there's a lot of other options. So what we're gonna do, we'll finish chopping up our peppers here, and we'll see you guys back in just 1 second.
Let's get out of here.
Protect what matters most in your life with security from Star Communications.
All right, welcome back, guys. So last steps here for our pineapple chicken fajitas. So we've got our peppers all chopped up, and our last thing is to add our onion here. So since these are fajitas, you do want them, in longer strips. So remember to always keep your hair. Don't cut that off. And we cut off the stem end. And I like to cut my onion in half just because I feel like it helps me to not have it rocking and rolling around. And then you're gonna take it and you're just gonna cut along those little grooves that you see on your onion. So it kind of reminds me of a blooming onion once you get those little pieces all chopped. Just be careful to watch those fingers. And it really helps if you have a nice sharp knife here. And I'll just rotate it till it's comfortable. So then now you have all of these little slivers of your onion. And then I just go at the bottom and I just chop that off. And now I can just separate it and throw it into our fajita mixture that we have. So I will go ahead and pass these to Kelly. Kelly, if you want to talk about our green pepper and what we've got over there.
So there are different ways of cutting up vegetables, and there's no right or wrong way. It's whatever's comfortable for you and what helps you enjoy cooking in your kitchen. So when I'm doing a bell pepper, I cut off the top and the bottom, and then I slice it and get the seeds out, and then can go ahead and do what I want to with it. So especially if I'm doing it in strips, this is not, wouldn't make really pretty strips, but we are going to use that today because we want to use all of it today. But if you're not, then you can take these and put these in a freezer bag, throw them in your freezer. You can use it in a soup that you're going to make. You can use it or just put it in your refrigerator if you think you're going to use it pretty soon on maybe salads or in other dishes. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish cutting this up. And that way, it also helps you save money so that you don't have to continuously buy peppers. I always try to have different recipes when you're getting things like this, so you can use them for other things and stretch your dollars.
Yeah, any way that you can stretch that food is good. So sometimes if we've got leftover, so say we only needed half of this onion, I would still go ahead personally and cut it up, and that way I could throw it into something else, or you can even dice it and freeze it. I do that a lot. So it just saves me that prep time later on down the road. If you've already got your knife and your cutting board out, go ahead and find a way to utilize the rest of whatever vegetable you are chopping.
Right, exactly. And I'm just going to go ahead and start kind of stirring it a little bit to start mixing in the peppers and the marinade. And we are also, so we've got a lot of vegetables here. So we're also going to add some pineapple for a little bit of sweetness. And we did drain the juice out of it.
Yes.
And you can drink your juice. Mm-hmm. There we go.
And one thing that I'm doing as well, let's move this right here so they can
I want to
see
get
everything.
every bit of that in there.
One thing that we are doing as well over here is I'm going ahead and I am separating that onion. Kelly, you said you made this dish before, and
yes,
it kind of leaves it in chunks if you don't do that, right?
Right.
It's a little tedious. I can't stand sitting here and messing with it. I'm so impatient. But if it makes a difference in the flavor of your dish,
it's
going to be worth it.
Totally up to what you want to do. It's not going to, I love the taste of onion. I love onion in my dishes. I eat a lot of onion. And so I would probably just kind of break it up a little bit and throw it in there. But if you have someone that might have some issues with onion, you just make it thinner and then they don't know it's in there.
So
okay.
She's moving it around. We want to get that all mixed up. Last thing that we're going to do is add it to our pans. Now we have 2 pans here, right? So we have 2 sheet pans, and I put aluminum foil just for easy cleanup. You want to find ways that makes it not as big of a hassle, because the cleanup part is not my favorite part of cooking. I don't know about you, Kelly.
It is not. And I try to clean up as I go, but sometimes I get so focused on my dish that
it gets hard.
Right, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll separate that between these 2. Let's see if we
can
maybe do some of this here. And I'll just do one to show you guys how it will look on your pan. Trying to get a little bit of everything. Now, when you did this, did you use a little bit of the juice or no?
Oh, yes. Everything.
You did.
Yes.
So we'll dump the whole thing in there, but just so you can see, I mean, it's got beautiful color. Mm-hmm. We will show you what it looks like when it's all done, but we have corn tortillas that we're gonna be using, and our corn tortillas are considered whole grain, and that makes a huge difference if you heat those up for just 5 minutes or so. So we'll show you our finished product. Thanks for being on the show today, Kelly.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I loved learning how she chopped up that chicken and made it into an easy, affordable way that we can use that in dishes later on. Right?
Great time.
So we'll do that in our next couple episodes. We'll show you what we're using those on later, and we'll see you guys back next time.